Very good morning. My name is Jai, and I'm very happy to welcome you to NTU NIE.
Hi, morning. I'm Alex. Welcome to our live chat. For those of you who are interested in our TSP program, BA-BSc program, and do have any questions, please go on to our NIE website, click onto the Slido link, and then post your questions. Okay. Well, at the moment we have quite a number of questions already, Jia Yi.
Yes.
The first question is, what's the difference between your degree program and the PGDE program?
Yeah. I think earlier on during the presentation, I did share quite a bit of information with regards to a comparison between the BA-BSc TSP program with the PGDE, the 16 months program. I think it's a good time for me to just kind of reiterate some of those perhaps distinction. I think obviously in terms of time frame, the PGDE itself is 16 months, but prior to that you will need to go through a undergrad degree program of study first. So that will add up to at least maybe about 5.5, 6 years or so. But for the BA-BSc TSP program, it's a direct honours, 4 years program, so it's obviously a little bit shorter. With regards to content coverage, the BA-BSc TSP program offers deep content coverage, a lot of emphasis on inquiry-based learning. So specifically, we have, and all our TSP students, the BA-BSc students, are required to do a final year project in their content area, and as well as educational research. So there's a lot of emphasis on inquiry-based learning. The uniqueness of the TSP program, the BA-BSc program, is also in terms of the number of practicum opportunities. That means the time that you spend in the school honing your craft as an educator. So for that, the BA-BSc TSP program students have 4 different practicum stints. So one for each year, and Dr. Alexis Chia actually is the Associate Dean here that oversees the practicum aspect of our program, and maybe you can elaborate a little bit more later on. So the practicum stint in terms of the 4 opportunities is obviously a lot more, and it's something that we value tremendously, because the practicum stint offers the opportunity for our student teachers to really bridge the theory practice link. All right. So and on top of that, I'm not sure whether you can hear me, but on top of that, there's also an emphasis on the opportunity for international experiences. So our student teachers in the BA-BSc program and the TSP program have the opportunity to go to another country to have what we call an international practicum. And I think I alluded that in the presentation earlier on as well, where they could spend some time in another school. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I think if you actually look at our program, this is really a unique feature of our program, where our student teachers at the end of year 2, going on to year 3, get to spend a stint of 5 weeks in one of our local partner universities, in which they actually place in local schools, both primary and secondary, depending on the track that you are on. So this is unique because they actually do teaching assistantship abroad. Reason being that we are a global world. We do have students of different nationalities even in our local classroom. It is important that teachers have that kind of global perspective, and that is really consistent with what we are trying to do with our degree program, to have our students have that kind of multiple perspective and that global perspective in order to be more effective 21st century teachers.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that rare opportunity for you to be mentored by, say, a teacher in Norway, for example, or a teacher in Finland, for example, that really is something that's very unique about our program.
I think I could kind of add to that point as well, where when we realize and when we see our student teachers who have gone to the international practicum, upon their return, their perspective on how they view education actually has evolved, and it's really quite different prior to them going. So we really see the value add as well. So obviously the international exposure is something that we value a lot in the BABS CTSP program, that however unfortunately is not available in the PGDE program obviously at this point in time. The other distinction that I would also highlight would be obviously with 4 years with us in the BABS CTSP program, our professors and our faculty really get to spend a lot of time interacting and really working with the students in the program, especially if already that they know that education is a calling for them, teaching is a calling for them, and all our BABS CTSP students are assigned a professor to mentor and to work with them for 4 years, giving them advice on courses to take, research work that they could be involved in, and even some of our BABSC students, even at the undergrad level, are able to work with some of our professors in the labs and are able to work together on research projects that is above and beyond the requirement of the coursework. And from there, and they are able to have those experiences, obviously, but also the outcome in terms of the work that they do, and some of these outcome comes in the form of journal papers, conference presentations, which we are also able to fund them to go and share some of these results together with their professors. So I think those opportunities are very valued, and we are able to provide those opportunities a lot more in the BABS CTSP program. And on top of that, obviously, the experience 4 years with us here in NTU NIE, that residential learning opportunities as well, because you're guaranteed 4 years of accommodation with us, and it's all fully sponsored as well through the scholarship that MOE offers to our students in the BABS CTSP program. I think those are in itself huge, I would say, supporting system and framework to really enhance those learning experiences for our student teachers.
And Tian, since you actually brought up the 4 practicum stints, maybe we could address this question that came in.
Sure.
Would the many practicum stints mean that we actually spend less time on campus for lesson? Wouldn't that mean we learn less than someone else in another degree program? I think this person obviously did his or her homework on our program. Thank you for that question. So maybe I'll just address that first before you can chip in. Yes, we do have 4 practicum stints, and as Tiai said, the practicum stints are important because it allows our student teachers to link theory and the practice. 4 practicum stints are planned deliberately so that it does not affect the curriculum time, except for the last stint. So these are done after exams, in between semesters. So the first experience will be the school experience where student teachers spend 2 weeks, 1 week in primary and 1 week in secondary after the year 1. The second stint, as I mentioned earlier, is the teaching assistantship. That is done after year 2, after the exam. So they go off for a 5-week stint either in a local school, but you can choose to do international practicum instead of teaching assistantship. So that's 5 weeks. The next stint is teaching practice 1. Okay? And teaching practice 1 again is done after they finish year 3. The only stint that is within the curriculum is actually teaching practice 2, or sometimes what we call the final practicum. And that's done in the last semester, in the last 6 weeks. So that means that our student teachers actually still spend time on campus. Many of them would have some courses to complete, and many of the courses are condensed within that 6 weeks before they go out for practicum.
Maybe just to add to that as well, I guess at the university level, if you see the practicum as an internship, right? In fact, many of the undergraduate programs do have an internship component. So again, we are no different in that sense, but in fact, I would say because of the different practicum opportunities that are afforded in the BABS CTSP program, like I said, 4 years, 4 times, that opportunity to really strengthen the theory practice links, it's so important. So whatever you do in your coursework in a classroom setting, you're able to make that connection between what you do in terms of how you would use that content, how would you teach that content in innovative ways. to really engage the learners in the school setting. I think that in itself, those practices, I think is so critical to really help develop and prepare our student teachers for that pathway into our schools as an educator.
Okay. Yeah. We've got quite a number of questions that are sort of related.
That's great. Keep the questions coming.
Yeah, quite a number of questions sort of related. So maybe we could address that.
Yes.
I think you covered that in your presentation just now, but maybe just to reiterate and to clarify, is TSP a scholarship? Okay. Does it provide a stipend? What are some of the benefits?
Okay. TSP, Teaching Scholars Program, we are actually in itself then a program. Students coming into our program would need to be given a scholarship or a teaching award by the ministry. So in our TSP, all our student teachers would be given a MOE teaching scholarship or a teaching award before being able to come on board the TSP, the Teaching Scholars Program. So the TSP in itself is not a scholarship, it is a program. But obviously for the students coming in, they would then already must have be given a MOE teaching scholarship or a teaching award first. Yes. And in terms of the benefits, all our student teachers in our program, the BA, BSc and the TSP program, are given a stipend, a yearly stipend. I think, if I'm not wrong, it ranges between 9,000 to about 12,000 per year. All fees are obviously paid for by through the scholarship that's given by the ministry. Semester exchange, if you spend time away, that is also actually supported and funded by the ministry. So living allowances when you're away for that semester is fully funded. Airfare is fully funded as well. On top of that, if you have interesting results to share from your research work, for conferences, to overseas conferences, that's also funded as well to a huge extent. The 4 years guaranteed accommodation in the NTU residence, the halls, that is also fully sponsored and fully paid for. The first 2 years, you are guaranteed hall stay, typically in either Crescent or Pioneer Hall. So in a nutshell, I think that's probably the key benefits that you could afforded if you come onto the program. That actually makes me very, very jealous.
Okay. Another question which I think is quite a legitimate question, because we have a couple who's asking, may I know what the average intake for the NTU NIE Scholars Program? So maybe I can just answer that. That it's really a very competitive program because it's one of NTU's premier scholars program. So the average intake ranges between 50 to 70 students, and it varies from year to year.
Again, it's very intentional that we keep the cohort size small because we are also able to then provide those learning opportunities where the prof-student ratio is kept small, where there is a lot of close interaction and engagement between the students and the professors, which also then alludes to the earlier point that I made, where every of our single student teacher are assigned to a professor as a mentor. So that small classroom size provides those opportunities for a lot of engagement, interaction, questioning, opportunities to share, to talk. I think those are things that we value a lot in the program, and we know them by their names.
I mean, wouldn't you say that at the end of the 4-year program, our student teachers actually get to know their professors a lot better, and really all part of the teaching and education community, where there is that close link because of the relationships which they build through the 4 years.
Okay. We have quite a lot of questions coming through actually, so maybe we just give us a bit of time to scan through. And again, just to highlight that if we are not able to address the questions during the live chat, we have a team who will be able to respond to you with answers on Slido as well, so that at least we make sure that all your queries are clarified or are addressed.
Yeah. Well, we got two questions about again our NIE NTU, in particular the BSc, and whether there are career prospects other than teaching.
Yeah. Okay.
That's an interesting question because it really is a scholars program. So we are assuming that people who are applying for the program are interested in teaching.
Yes.
And because there is a scholarship that's given by MOE, as Jia Yi explained earlier, then there's a bond attached to it,
Yes.
which is a 4-year bond.
Yeah.
So that means that you would have to serve out your bond, would have to serve out your bond before you are able to pursue other things.
Yeah, yeah.
But having said that, we all know at NIE, and we continue to tell our students that there are many career paths in MOE itself as well.
Yeah.
So yes, primarily you are signing up for the program to be a teacher, but in MOE, if you go onto their website, you realize that they have very clear paths for teaching, for leadership, as well as for specialists as well.
Yeah. So you're not confined to being a classroom teacher per se, but typically for the first 2 to 3 years upon graduation from our program and getting into the schools, you will need to spend some time in the school as a beginning teacher, and thereafter, like what Alexis mentioned earlier on, there are different pathways that you have opportunities to undertake. Of course, obviously in consultation and advice from the school leaders in the schools. Career beyond the program, I mean, maybe just I want to allude you to the point where I made in the presentation, where a number of our student teachers actually went on upon graduation from our program to undertake a master's program in the content area as well. So in that sense, it is not limiting to obviously teaching in the perspective, but again, like what Dr. Alexis Chia mentioned earlier on, we do obviously hope if there's a calling for you and you've registered and come on board this program, we are obviously hoping that you would stay on in the profession. But nevertheless, if for whatever reasons that you think that teaching is not for you after a number of years, there are opportunities too, because do remember that this is a BSc program, and if there are any opportunities where the employment is looking at a person with BSc in your relevant major, I think that's something that you can consider too. But nevertheless, I think our preference obviously is for you to continue to stay on in the education profession, because I think that 4 years experience and all the different opportunities that's afforded to you would definitely put you in a very, very strong position.
Yeah. We actually have another interesting question, and again, I think for this potential candidate, he or she obviously has done the homework or his homework.
Sure.
Is it true that all modules will be chosen for teaching scholars?
Modules in terms of courses?
In terms of courses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be related to another bigger question that I think many will be asking, would be, who decides on my major? Right? Do I have an option to decide on what I want to major in, or is this something that is done where MOE decides for you? I think that's probably connected to that question, right?
Yes.
So in that sense, what you can major in obviously is depending on a few factors. First and foremost would be obviously your previous educational experience. So if you have the A-level route, then what would be some of the H2 subjects that you have undertaken? And therefore, if you have already been majoring in certain subjects, then clearly, you would have the prerequisite or some of those experiences and the knowledge to go on and major in that particular subject with us. Let's say if you've done a H2 in chemistry, then obviously perhaps a chemistry major here would make a lot of sense for you. So if it's a poly pathway as well, obviously looking at your diploma certification and see where your strengths and your specialization is, and then we can perhaps advise you on some of the majors. It is done in consultation with MOE, because MOE will also look at those academic background, and also very importantly the needs of the ministry and the needs of the schools, and therefore offer you the opportunity to major in a particular subject area. So I think that is how that arrangement is made between MOE and us together with the applicants.
Questions are coming in.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. So does getting the MOE teaching scholarship guarantee a place in the TSP? Okay. So maybe I'll answer that, because I think Jia Yi explained it to you just now. So maybe we can clarify this, that the TSP, the Teaching Scholars Program, really is not a scholarship disbursement program. Okay? The applicants who are interested in the TSP need to apply to the MOE scholarships and awards. So all successful applicants will then be placed in the TSP. So a short answer to the question that was asked is that yes, if you get the MOE scholarship, you'll be actually placed in the TSP program.
You are strongly encouraged to come into our program. Again, just to highlight to you, all our student teachers in the TSP must be MOE teaching scholarship or teaching award holders.
Okay.
So a lot of questions. Maybe
yes.
we probably need to take a bit of time to scan through those questions as well.
Yes. Another interesting question, again, somebody who probably is very interested. What's the difference between the curricular workload of a TSP student compared to a non-TSP student?
Okay, we do have the BA-BSc program, as I mentioned earlier on in the presentation as well. So the Teaching Scholars program sits on top of the BA-BSc program. So the Teaching Scholars program, as I mentioned earlier on in the presentation, and Alexis mentioned earlier on as well, is one of the 4 Premier Scholars program. So being in a TSP program challenges you to take additional academic units. So up to 15 academic units as compared to the BA-BSc program. So obviously the workload is quite heavy. There is obviously a huge proportion of the work that is in your major, and the major, again, I want to reiterate, it is at the university level, at the tertiary level. So if you are doing a BA or a BSc program, your major is in the arts or humanities subject for BA, science subject in the BSc program, and it is packed obviously to the university level. In that sense, as I mentioned earlier on, the additional academic units for the Teaching Scholars program is a lot more than the BA-BSc program, and therefore the workload is heavier, rigorous as well, but as I mentioned, it is one of the 4 Premier Scholars program, and we do expect certain level of rigor for our students in the program as well.
Okay. We've got 2 related questions, so maybe I'll take that. First question is, I would like to teach a science subject as well as humanities subject. Is it possible to be teaching both at the same time? And another person asked earlier, is it possible to major in both science and humanities subject in your programs? I think our advice is that you should indicate your preferred teaching subjects to MOE when you apply. And teaching subjects and levels are assigned really based on the needs of the education service. Whether there is a need in the school to have this particular combination, they do take your indicated preference into account, as well as I think your proficiency in the subjects as well. The scholarship officers in MOE will then discuss this with you if you are shortlisted for an interview.
But coming back to the question again, with reference to whether someone can teach both humanities and science subjects specifically, I think it is possible. So at the secondary level, obviously, someone could be majoring in English and mathematics, and can teach both subjects at the secondary level as well. So it is not an issue in terms of teaching both a science and a humanities subject. So for example, if someone, for the secondary level, if someone chooses to do, let's say, geography and math, but geography being the major, the person will graduate with a Bachelor of Arts But in terms of the math, the person will also do some math major courses, but at a lower proportion as compared to the geography courses. So, and then in that case, the person can be prepared to teach both geography and math at the same time at the secondary level. But because geography being the first major, the person will graduate with a Bachelor of Arts education program certification.
Okay, a question I think for me. Yeah, can I go to other universities besides the NIE partnership universities for semester exchange? Yeah. A short answer is yes. We actually work very closely with NTU OGEM, which is the Office of Global Education and Mobility, and NTU has partners with a few hundred universities. Yeah? And through OGEM, many of our students who have actually gone for semester exchange have really gone all over the world. And I would say that I think they are really spot for choice in that sense.
Yes.
What we would recommend is for our students to actually go with the OGEM list. NIE has a shorter list. And to go with that because these universities are carefully chosen for their reputation, for their programs, for their content expertise.
I think in fact our own faculty would actually visit those partners universities and visit the schools as well to make sure that those are safe environment, those are environment that are conducive to enhance the learning for our student teachers. I think you can vouch for that.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, maybe one question that I picked up from here.
The poly, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Does polytechnic students have a disadvantage compared to JC students when applying to TSP? So no, there is no disadvantage in that sense. If you meet the criteria, if you meet the cutoff, and if you get through the interviews from MOE, you will be offered that opportunity to come on board to study with us. And we have quite a number of students from the poly pathway as well who are currently in our program, and they have been doing very, very well too.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Just give us some time. Those of you who have questions, keep it fast and furious.
Yes.
Go onto the NIE website, click on the Slido link and ask your questions.
Yeah. Maybe one question here, that is it possible to apply using last year's results? Yes, I think the admission window is afforded to people with applicants from this year's results as well as last year. So it's not an issue. I think you can just apply for it. That's as far as we understand. It's quite a lot of questions, Alexis, coming through, and we are just kind of busy scanning through the questions as well.
Okay, this is a brand new question, but I saw some of the older questions that's related to this. Does NIE determine who qualifies for the degree program? Do grades play a very important part?
I think grades do play an important part. Obviously, because it's a Premier Scholars program, we are looking at people with intellectual rigor. But nevertheless, if there are background in terms of non-academic, like CCA involvement, strong leadership qualities, we do take into account as well. We do value those features as well and characteristics as well in terms from our applicants. So I think the bottom line is really just to apply, and we will review the application so that we can then provide the opportunity to at least perhaps hopefully call you in for an interview and look at your application closely.
Okay, there's a question about cohort size again.
Yeah.
How big is your BA cohort? I think we sort of addressed that question in general just now. For our degree program, we take in between 50 to 70 students, depending on the intake and the year.
Yeah.
So roughly it's going to be half and half. right?
Yeah.
So half of the cohort will be the BA Ed students, and the other half will be the BSc Ed students, roughly.
Yes, so
Yeah.
it's more or less an equal distribution so far.
Yeah.
So the very first intake of the TSP program actually started was in 2014. So we already had two cohorts that graduated, and the distribution was more or less quite fairly equal between the BA and the BSc program and the Teaching Scholars program. So yeah, the numbers are more or less fairly stable at between 50 to 70 per cohort size.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a good question. Yeah. Is this program applicable to me if I like to teach mother tongue? Yes, of course.
Yes.
Yes, please apply, because we do have student teachers training to be Chinese teachers, Chinese language teachers, Malay language teachers, as well as Tamil language teachers.
Yes.
So please do apply.
Yes. So we do have quite a number of mother tongue teachers in our program as well.
Okay, if I didn't manage to get into TSP and I went to another degree, would I still be able to become an MOE teacher? Well, in short, definitely yes, because as Jia Yi said, there are these two different pathways in which you can be a teacher if you're a degree holder. Come to us if you are very sure that you want to be a teacher. So that's our preferred pathway, to come to our 4-year degree program. For those of you who haven't decided or didn't get into the our degree program, you can always pursue a degree in one of the local universities and then apply to us via the PGDE route, which is a 16-month program.
Yes. Yeah. So there's always the option of that PGD 16-month program. As I mentioned earlier on in the presentation as well, it's also a good program, but again, as what was mentioned earlier on, if we could, we would really prefer you to come through the 4 years program with us, because we can really spend a lot more time with you, and the different opportunities that are afforded in the program, I think it's a great platform for us to really support your development.
Yeah, but I mean, having said that, we would want to also say, to be fair to you, you need to be pretty sure that you actually want to be a teacher, because it really is going to be a 4-year commitment if you want to join our degree program. So for those of you who are undecided, who have certain reservations, then you might want to rethink the other options as well.
Yeah. And I think going back to that point about perhaps when you speak to quite a number of your teachers in the school that you have an interest in being a teacher, most likely that they would have advised you to go through the PGDE route. And I mentioned earlier on in the presentation that that's because the bulk of our teachers in our system has actually gone through the PGDE program, and therefore that's a pathway that's a bit more familiar to the teachers in the school. But the BA-BSc program and the TSP program, the TSP program especially, like launched recently in 2014, 6 years ago, it's very targeted to really rethink how we want to prepare our student teachers. And obviously we know that there are many good education systems around the world, like Finland, for example, where the teachers are at the master's level, and they spend a lot of time really honing the craft to become an educator. So in terms of how we may want to do it, really, as I mentioned earlier on, the preferred pathway really is the 4 years BA-BSc TSP program.
Yeah. And I think the advice that comes from the teaching community largely is maybe because of the lack of familiarity. Because we've only graduated 2 batches of our enhanced degree TSP program. So there really isn't a lot of teachers out there to be able to be there to give good advice. As Jia Yi said, most of your teachers in school, if you go back to your JC or your secondary school teachers to ask for advice, they largely came from the PGDE route. So that's something that we continue to educate the people in the teaching community as well, that really we are running a very different program. It is an enhanced BA-BSc program that's quite different from the past.
Yeah, the BA-BSc program actually has been around for a long time. It started in 1991, but of course it has gone through a few iterations in terms of its enhancements, and The latest obviously was in 2013-14, and that's also then when the TSP, the Teaching Scholars Program, came about. Yeah. So it was a very intentional step for us, and obviously the TSP program being one of the 4 premier scholars program now in NTU, I think it speaks volume in terms of the emphasis that we place in the program and in the way we support our student teachers in their learning journey.
Okay.
Yeah.
An interesting question, but a relevant one. If I prefer to teach in a primary school, do I focus in this domain in BA/BSc?
If you want to teach primary, let's focus on this domain. Okay. Let me try to understand this question a little bit more as well. Just to highlight as well, when you are prepared to teach in a primary school level, it doesn't mean that whatever you learn here is only packed to the content where it is only for teaching in a primary school level. Just to reiterate as well, BA/BSc program at TSP, the major that you're doing is packed at the university level. I mean, I spoke about our student teachers who have gone on from our program to do a master's level in the content area. I mean, it speaks volume, especially at well-known universities around the world. So I just want to highlight that again to potential applicants here. In terms of then what do you focus in? In our BA/BSc TSP program, you major in a subject. We also have what we call curriculum studies courses, and those are the courses where we help prepare you to teach the subject at the level, whether it's at a primary level or whether it's at a secondary level. And the content, obviously, in terms of your major, is very much aligned also to the teaching subject. So if you are majoring in English, likelihood that you will be also teaching English, whether it's in a primary level or at a secondary level. So the content that you have at the university level, at the tertiary level, is deep. You're able to leverage on that depth of that content knowledge to support teaching, whether it's at the primary level or whether it's at the secondary level.
Yeah, we cannot emphasize it enough that we really have a program that's very rigorous in terms of content. It really is a BA and a BSc, of course with a strong education core that we actually offer to you. Because we actually believe that in order for you to teach simply, okay, you really need to have very deep content to be able to actually do it.
Yes, yes. I mean, imagine the kind of conversations that you have with your students in the school, with the wealth of knowledge and the depth of knowledge that you have. I think that's something that I think we value a lot in our program.
Yeah. I think we probably have time for maybe one more question because time is running out. Let me see. There are quite a number of questions that came in, so we're going to scroll through the questions.
I think there's this one that says, in light of declining birth rates, merger of schools.
Okay.
I think what is important for you to understand, I guess this is a question that says, okay, it's an interesting one. In light of the declining birth rates and plans to merge schools, is there a possibility of joining the program not having a stable employment in the future? I think all our student teachers, like we mentioned, coming into our program would already be MOE teaching awardees or MOE teaching scholarship holders. That would mean that you would be guaranteed employment upon graduation from our program.
Yeah.
So you have a bond to serve, so definitely guaranteed employment. And therefore I don't think that is an issue. But yes, I think it's a very relevant question in terms of merger of schools. We do see that, and that's why we have 33,000 teachers and we don't see huge fluctuations in terms of the number. It's more or less stable. Yes, declining birth rates, we see merger of schools, but education, teaching, I think it's a valued profession. We put a lot of resources in preparing our student teachers so that they can really go out into the schools to be effective teachers. I mean, it's cliche, but really to make a difference, because I'm a trained teacher. Dr. Alexis Chia is also a trained teacher. We are teachers in terms of our background, and then if I could, I would like to teach in a primary school. I think that's where, at the age where I can really impact and make a difference to the kids.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you all for your questions. I'm afraid we have run out of time.
But we do have another session later on at
Yes.
3 p.m. where we will also have a live cast and we will also take questions during that slot as well. But the questions coming onto Slido, like I mentioned earlier on, we do have another team that is on site also to address some of these questions. If we have not been able to address those questions live, but we will come back to you so to clarify any doubts that you may have.
So keep those questions coming.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. So
And if you want to see us live again, we will be here at 3 p.m.
Yes.
So tune in.
yes. So thank you very much. Thanks for taking time on this Saturday morning to ask questions and to engage with us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.